You're listening to live streaming right here in beautiful Northport, Florida. Sorry I was delayed for a second. I had to sneeze a couple times, but I've got a very special guest in the house today. We're live streaming right here in beautiful Northport, Florida, and we've got real talk, and we're going to have a real conversation today with you, the listeners, and our commissioner, Barbara Langdon from Northport. How you doing?
I'm doing great, John. How are you?
Not too bad, not too bad at all. We've got a little bit happening around town, don't we?
Always, always. A little more drama than I prefer, but it is what it is.
Well, I think drama follows every city, doesn't it?
I think so too. When I talk to folks in other municipalities, it's pretty much par for the course.
Yeah, we go through these moments in time, and you, the listeners, if you have any questions for Barbara Langdon or myself, feel free to ask. We're here to address anything that you guys have to talk about along the path. But I say this about a lot of cities. I grew up in Columbus and served in the Air Force and was everywhere. Um, anytime you're connected with the city, it seems like it's amplified more. I think when citizens are disconnected from the city, they don't hear it. They don't hear the noise so much.
Right,
Is that a
right.
good interpretation from your viewpoint?
Well, yeah, folks are connected. And sometimes those who are connected because they're upset about something or angry about something or confused about something. Um, I grew up in the city of Boston, and so talk about a political environment. And I was used to a very strong mayor and sort of more of an advisory council, and there were votes, but the strong mayor was pretty strong, elected by the voters of the city of Boston. And
Kind of a
when I,
flip, kind of
huh?
a flip to what we have here.
A real flip. And so coming here, when I started paying attention, it was just an Alice through the looking glass kind of experience. And I suspect, particularly with the growth that Northport has been experiencing throughout its history, but certainly in the past 5 years since COVID, we have a lot of people here from all over the country who are familiar, or perhaps not, but who are familiar with different types of governmental structures. So when those folks start to get involved or start paying attention to what's going on in the government here in Northport, a lot of times they're bringing the expectations that perhaps were reasonable where they come from. But here in Northport, with our form of government, it's just not the way we do things here. So I think there's a lot of confusion. Oftentimes, when people are confused, they get upset, angry, they feel disconnected. I mean, I know just based on some of the outreach that residents of Northport make to me, either through emails or calling me on my city phone. And they ask for my help in certain areas. And it's clear from the request that they expect that I'm able to interact with any city department, that I'm willing or not willing, but that I'm allowed or able to engage with any employee I want to and make things happen. And so when it's not just me, it's all of the commissioners here in Northport. So when we're not able to interject ourselves on the administrative side of the house and get people what they want, perhaps, they can get disillusioned or disappointed or angry. But the fact is, in our form of government, the commissioners in Northport are not allowed, per our city charter, to make any demands or requests or to direct city staff in any way. We are required by our charter to send all of our inquiries and requests for information through the city manager's office. And that is clearly spelled out in our charter.
True. So I guess I'm going to go with Trish over here real quick. The first thing she said is, I have lived here since 1974. Why do I feel so disconnected?
I don't know. I think, Trish, you might be in a better position to answer that. I'm going to guess. I mean, I've only been here 11 years, so I'm working on my 12th year. So I'm a relative newcomer, compared with folks who've been here 20, 30 years. Our city has been growing so fast and has changed so much in the past 5 years, 6 years maybe. I think since COVID, we had just an enormous spurt in growth, population growth in the city. Also, too, we brought in brand new management into the city. We hired Jerome Fletcher, our city manager, in 2020, end of 2020. He started in 21. And I'm sorry, he started in 22. We hired him in 21. And he also brought in a number of really competent, really productivity-oriented, results-oriented senior managers into the city. And that has enabled Northport to really turn a corner in terms of its development and growth. And
well, I'm going to hold you for a second, because
let me just say that's a mixed bag. That can be a real mixed bag.
I'm going to go, Tricia, I'm going to come back to your question in a minute and put it up. But something in that line from Dylan, why wasn't the millage rate lowered when home values have skyrocketed?
Oh, okay, I have an answer for that. For years, previous city commissioners, and I'm not second guessing their decisions, I'll say we, not necessarily the current commissions, but over the past 30 years, however many years, most of the commissioners were reluctant to charge anybody what we really should have been charging. And this includes for growth. So I hear a lot from people, and they're not wrong. Growth should pay for growth. But it wasn't until 2 or 3 years ago that the commission approved a fairly substantial growth in our impact fees, because previous commissions had been reluctant to do that. And whether you're increasing a millage rate or increasing any of your district fees or user fees or impact fees on developers, whatever it is, people aren't happy. No one wants to pay more, myself included. But historically, we've not staffed to the level we needed to staff at. We didn't have sufficient numbers of employees in certain departments to be able to deliver a level of service to our residents and to the businesses here in Northport, or who wanted to come here in Northport. And as a result, we were seriously behind the eight ball, particularly when our growth really started exploding in 2019, 2020. And we really fell behind in terms of having the manpower to achieve and maintain a high level of service for folks who live and do business here. And in addition to that, our pay scales were low. So we often compare ourselves to the other municipalities and to Sarasota County, and also to other municipalities in the state who have similar demographics and maybe growth characteristics and that kind of thing. So we're always sort of comparing ourselves to them. And what we paid our first responders and folks throughout the city, our senior managers, was in the very lower range of what our comparable cities and municipalities were paying their folks. So, yes, our property values have really exploded. That's what has caused all of us to pay more in taxes.
That's more county.
I'm in Northport.
Well, yes, but that's more county run though on the tax rates on what they collect.
Well, on the assessed value, yes. Yeah. So the tax rate, we kind of call it a millage rate. That's something that the city controls, at least right now.
Right.
But the assessed value of our properties is set at the county level. So we did bring in a lot of tax dollars, not because the percentage we charged went up. We've held that steady for 5 or 6 years, but the taxable value of our collective properties went up. And we used that money to hire, and we used that money to increase the pay scales of our employees. What we found was happening is we would hire someone onto the police force or someone into our fire and rescue teams. And a couple of common scenarios. We would hire people who really didn't have the skills or didn't have a lot of options, and so they were willing to be paid less. Or we got people who were really green, maybe had just finished training or still needed to go through training. And what would happen is the city of Northport, our taxpayers, would pay for the city to train those folks. But then as soon as they had some experience under their belt, and as soon as we had people trained, they would leave the city to go work for somewhere else because they could get paid more.
Right. And so let me transition here real quick, because
yeah,
I took us down the path because of Dylan's question. Great question, right. Dylan, by the way.
And it was a very good question.
Right back to the elephant in the room, because that's kind of like the heated up moment. I want to see your answer, and then I want to give a comment, but go ahead.
Trish, I've got to tell you, there's no elephant in my room. Our city manager and Commissioner Duval, last time I checked, they are adult, all grown up men. Let them work it out. If there was a misunderstanding between them, let them work it out. Last time I checked, Commissioner Duval has not filed any complaints or taken any action. There is nothing in my mind to talk about. So I'd rather talk about all the exciting things that have been happening in the city. We have really turned a corner. And the most recent in my mind is the groundbreaking for Sarasota Memorial Hospital. How many decades have people in this city been asking for a hospital within the city limits? And it finally happened. Now, I'd love to take credit for it, but it was really the work of lots of people over time. But that is going to have a huge impact for our city. And certainly, quality health care is the number one benefit for our residents, people who live here. But the other big part of that is jobs. They're going to bring hundreds of jobs all up and down the pay scale. It will be a huge economic boost to people who live here. And my late husband was not in great health, and we spent a lot of time up in Sarasota Memorial Hospital in the city of Sarasota. And it seemed that every nurse and every technician and almost every cafeteria worker, the food service people would ask them, where do you live? Northport, maybe Venice, heavily South County. And now those folks will be able to work where they live and not have that kind of a commute to their job. In addition to all of the new work opportunities, it's very exciting. And it's not just Sarasota Memorial. The VA is moving their clinic here to Northport. A behavioral health hospital opened about a year ago. We have a rehabilitation hospital about to start construction here in the city. This is a very exciting time for the city of Northport.
Well, and I want to reflect something here real quick from a citizen's point of view. Tricia, I agree with you that there are some people that are taking it as an insulting to the citizens, but I want you to think about something for a minute. I had a great talk with Robin this weekend,
right?
And I was saying things to her on a personal level and also on a structural level, and I think it's the citizens' responsibility to put fires out, and still good governance,
right?
But you kind of have to be a fire inspector and kind of go through and find out where the fire actually started.
Right.
You can't. I always I said this to Robin over the weekend. A lot of football players, when they get into a retaliatory push, they get flagged. Well, they don't catch the first guy; they catch the second guy.
Right.
Well, there's always the first incident, and I'm not saying it's right or it's wrong. I don't know that any of it's right or wrong. I don't have I'm not going to pick a side. What I'm going to say is, maybe stop dumping gasoline on the fire and go figure out what it was. And go figure out where the fire started, because that's what fire guys do. They don't go. I asked a fireman this weekend. I said, "When's the last time you rolled up to a fire and walked away?" He goes, "Like, we don't. We go in." And I said, "If you go in, then how do you determine where it starts?"
Right.
Well, go find out where the ignition started.
Right.
And so you can't just say it was a fire. Why was it a fire? It's the same thing it's the same thing in your own households.
Right.
It doesn't take a rocket scientist to figure out that two wrongs don't make a right.
Right.
But there's not just one direction. Stop pointing your fingers at one direction. There's responsibilities amongst all of them.
Right.
And you're right. They need to learn how to get along. But that's just my point of view.
Right.
I taught that to my boys. I hope that gives you a different perspective, Tricia. But
Right.
I know that you're upset by it, and you're allowed to be. It's okay.
Right. Right.
I saw it posted, and I wanted to at least give that out.
Right.
And let me slide into Chuck English, Glenn Coke. Hold on. Glenn is a past customer of mine. Hi, Glenn. Talking about the American flag, how come the code enforcement doesn't do their job? Where we live, they allow a junkyard across the street from us. Now, if you could take a picture of that, you could probably send it into the app or not the app anymore, but the website on the city website, and at least get notice sent out to the proper channels. Or if you'll text me, I'll help you do that, Glenn, for sure. But it go ahead, Robin. Or, I'm sorry.
If I can, John, for a minute,
Sure.
respond to Glenn. This is one of the toughest balancing acts that we have in this city. And for every person who complains to me that the city is becoming an HOA, we want landscaping to be a certain way. We don't want unregistered cars or blah, 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 whatever it is. There's a sentiment in the city, and we're not unique. It's US wide and certainly in the state of Florida that it's my property. I'm going to do what I want on my property. But we're quarter-acre lots and we're all jammed together. So I would just encourage everyone to realize that what we do on our properties, our quarter-acre lots, directly impacts people around us. So if we can just think about that and be considerate. On the opposite end of the spectrum, clearly, there are properties in this city that are violating code. And here's the thing. Sometimes properties might look messy. Some people might not be happy with how it looks. But again, if the owner of that property is not violating city code, there's not a heck of a lot we can do about it. And the violation has to be observable from the street. So our code enforcement officers are not allowed on private property to inspect anything. Glenn, we also we have one of these, I think, in just about any neighborhood. I certainly had one on mine, a house that got half built, and I don't know what happened to the builder, but there's been no progress for a year, 2 years. There's a dumpster overflowing with junk. The grass and the weeds are growing up. Please let the city know about those. But the reality of that is there's a process set by state statute that the city has to follow, a remedial process. We just can't Gestapo in, no matter what the condition is, unless there's a clear and present danger to the residents or surrounding residents. There's a process we have to follow, and it can take time. So I share your frustration. It's always a difficult balance between allowing people to do what's reasonable on their properties. But, when things get a little bit out of control or actual codes get violated, the city will address those. It takes some time because there's a process we need to go through.
And Chuck English has a question. With infrastructure, is it keeping up with the rate of growth? It's a real simple question. Do you believe in the infrastructure growing first or growth, or how do you examine that?
Well, the simple answer is no. Our infrastructure is not keeping up with growth. And there are bunches of reasons for that. And I mentioned one earlier. Until recently, 2 or 3 years ago, the city really was not charging enough in impact fees to be able to address the need for more roads, improved drainage, water and sewer, all of that kind of thing. And we can't borrow. So your question, John, can we build infrastructure in advance of growth? We've done a little bit of that. About 4 years ago, the then city commission voted the funds to extend water and sewer into the intersections of Sumter and 75 and Toledo Blade and 75. And those investments voted on years ago have enabled the hospital to come here. It's facilitating a lot of growth, mixed use and commercial and industrial growth in the interchange of Toledo Blade and 75. And again, beauty is in the eye of the beholder. People see trees coming down, and that's upsetting. I get it. But I also see jobs. I see buildings being built that enable companies to locate here with their jobs. There are a lot of companies that just, it's not in their business model to build a building. They want to come into an already existing building. So for example, the Benderson development up at the intersection of Toledo Blade and 75 is a great example of that. A lot of new companies have come and are coming into the city because of the availability of Class A industrial space for them.
Slide right into this because Chuck, this is kind of coupled together.
So why do we keep adding to the burden well, I'm not sure our development is out of control. We did a lot of work, and after 10 years of failed efforts, we finally did update our Unified Land Development Code, which are the rules that builders and developers must follow when they come here to create their businesses. So I'm off track.
Nope, stay on track. Stay right there. We'll have this in a minute.
Oh, so is infrastructure keeping up and all of that? In general, no. So for me, I see one of the major problems is the proliferation of wells and septics throughout the city. And we, in some areas, I'm on city water, but I'm on septic. I think a lot of people are sort of in that. We do not have the money to expand water and sewer throughout the city. I mean, a few years ago, when we spec'd it out from a cost perspective, and this is just residential, I'm talking about residential now, that we can't borrow and we don't have the money to expand water and sewer. And that's true for a lot of our infrastructure. We don't have the money to put it in advance, so we can't borrow. So 2 or 3 years ago, we dramatically increased the impact fees that we're collecting. If a builder builds a single family home or a multifamily home or the Benderson project with all of its Class A industrial space, they are all paying impact fees. But we have to save as we go. So yes, we've been charging more to developers the past 2 or 3 months, but we have to put all of that money in reserve until we have enough money to do the project. We are required by state statute to have all of the money saved up before we initiate a project. And that's a real challenge. Construction costs are going up 8 to 10% a year, and we're always chasing that curve. Now, it's a little different when it comes to larger projects because our ULDC requires those projects to build or construct or connect to their own water and sewer. So no longer, and this was for years, you could not have a commercial property on septic and well. It would have to be on, city water and city sewer. So it's really the proliferation of single family homes on quarter acre lots that are the most troublesome from an infrastructure point of view. And about traffic and roads, when a large development goes in, whether it's multifamily or mixed use, combination of commercial and residential, or a completely commercial or industrial space, traffic studies are done, not by the city, but by a third party consultant. And typically, the result of that study will require that development to put in some improvements. Might not be widening the road, it might be adding a turn lane, it might be doing something else, it might be improving the drainage in that area. It gets really technical. But again, what's the toughest, and this is sometimes hard for people to accept, the larger projects have more requirements in terms of drainage, impact on traffic, buffering. Our new ULDC has really amped up the buffering requirements of those developments, particularly when they abut a single family home community. The landscaping, trees or fences or walls or bushes or whatever. And so the city is able to impact those larger developments. What we're a little hamstrung on are those single family homes. And the tendency, people want bigger homes, which again, covers more of that quarter acre lot. So it's a real mixed bag in terms of that.
Quick follow-up. In addition to what we have as far as regulations,
right,
like with the water and sewer and different things like that, we're also going to be at some point directed by the federal government to do something too.
Yeah.
And that I think that's a step that a lot of people like disconnect with
right.
On some of the regulations. Can you talk about that just quickly?
Yeah, I don't know when that's going to happen. Most people think at some point the Environmental Protection Agency is going to come down on municipalities with a very high percentage of septic and well. I lived in New Hampshire for 30 years, and most of my time there I was on septic and well. The difference is elevation and a rocky soil. We don't have it. So anyway, yeah, and it's going to be huge. We've been trying to avoid putting the whole burden on our residents. Last time we did a cost estimate, it's about 30 grand per household to put the infrastructure in the street and for the house to connect then to that infrastructure. And we do have some funds, and there's slow progress in one small area of the city to put that water and sewer in. And staff has figured out a way to cover a lot of that cost from grants and other funding sources in the city. But it's a real challenge. It's a real challenge.
It is. So you've got another one. Let's see. Let's go with Pam.
Hi, Pam.
I forgot if we have one in place, but is there a master plan in place for Activity Center 6?
And 10 for that matter. Yes, we need it for both. It is underway, Pam, and it's my understanding that those plans will come to commission. My fingers are crossed a little bit, but the last date I heard was sometime in January. But those plans are well underway, as well as a master plan for out by Parks and Rec for east of Toledo Blade. And that is actually starting to circulate, is my understanding. I think I have a meeting coming up with Parks and Rec to take a first look at that.
Well, and I've got kind of a combination. We didn't answer this earlier for Dylan. A follow up. What is the plan if they abolish property taxes? have we started like looking at what is going to happen if that occurs?
I'm going to pray a lot.
Yeah, because
That's
don't
pretty much
we really
where
count
we're at,
we
Dylan.
really count on that, don't we?
Well, I mean, really, what else is there? My expectation is if Tallahassee makes that change, then they're going to have to craft what is the alternative.
Right.
One of the things I heard when I was in Tallahassee last year, now we'll be there again in January and we'll get an update on this. But one of the things I heard was, oh, well, we'll do it through property taxes. Well, let's talk about volatility. Up and down, up and down, up and down. Sales taxes are way more volatile than property taxes. Properties, I mean, clearly we've seen an upswing over the past 5 years, but when you look at the long term, they're pretty consistent, up and down. Sales taxes are all over the place. So, how do you plan as a municipality or county? How do you plan to pay people year to year? How can you fulfill your commitments to your community to do certain projects, build a new park, expand a road, improve road and drainage in an area, improve our response to hurricanes? How can you do that when you have no idea year to year what your revenue flow is going to look like?
Right. You're right.
I don't know how to do it, Dylan. So I'm going to be praying a lot. That's what I'm going to be doing.
I know. So let's slide into Parks and Rec because you mentioned parks, so I threw
Right.
it up there.
Right.
Sean, he actually asked this at the town hall meeting with Mayor Phil. But Parks and Rec facilities and staff give us Northport Easterners some love out here. I think you're going to have a good time with this one. Go ahead.
Sean, I have been the biggest pain in the tuchus on the dais saying, what about out east? What about out east?
Aren't you east? Aren't you east? You are east.
I am east. It's my district. But that's not the only reason. I mean, we are building our 30th park. Now, Director Fundheller kind of corrected me. It's not that we have 30 parks in the traditional sense of parks, but we also have facilities. So let's take a look at West Price, where the high school is, and across the street we have the middle school, and we have, of course, I'll have a brain cramp. I want to say Abbott Park. It's not. We have a park out there. We have a water park out there, and we have a community center. So that counts for 3 parks on sort of one Butler Park in one area. And we also have the Myakkahatchee Creek Greenway that kind of borders that whole area. So we could say 4 parks in the same, or facilities in the same area. We have 30 west of Toledo Blade. I want to protect those. I don't ever want to see the city in a position of having to sell open space and parkland to balance our budget. But we have 1 park and some land that the county bequeathed to us on San Mateo that will connect with Atwater Park, which is the only park right now we have out east. So I've been a huge proponent of starting to allocate money to buy land for parks. So any day now, I will have, and all the commissioners will have, a sneak peek at the Parks and Rec master plan for out east. And I'm really excited to see that. There is an intention to build a community center, sort of in the Atwater Park area. I am a 100% proponent of having a community center to service the out east community as it starts building out. I am concerned about the city's ability to maintain and run 3 community centers. It's my feeling, and I know I get a lot of displeasure from the community, but we do deep dives into the budget every year. We are not a wealthy community, and we have a lot of wealthy assets to maintain. So I'm concerned about having 3 community centers. I think having one out west and one out east is sufficient, but we definitely need to start expanding our parks infrastructure out east. So I'm really looking forward to get a sneak peek at the master plan.
And this one is really about the concerns about traffic from Robin. Great question. So the people over at the Heron Creek area with
Right.
Sumter and Price, and it's really getting really congested there. What's the talk now? Are we in talks? Are we doing anything there? I know that we really need the state to step up and help us with the interchange there at Sumter and 75, because we have 2 really bad escape routes right now that are just horrible in time of need, and high density.
Right.
What's your thoughts there?
Right. First, with Robin, I think that development is beginning to lease out or get purchased. Traffic will get heavy. I don't think I have seen the traffic plan for that. I'd be happy to do a little research and get back to you on what kinds of improvements, if any, the traffic studies of that development required. Certainly isn't being helped by the widening of Price. I think once that work is completed, traffic in that area will flow a lot better. But John, to your point, yeah, I mean, we need enhancements at both of our interchanges. We desperately need a 3rd interchange. We're not feeling the pain of that traffic-wise yet.
It's coming.
It's coming, but we are feeling the pain of that from a bringing jobs here point of view. When we redid the Unified Land Development Code, part of that was rezoning, part of that was the amping up of the design requirements. But a lot of the rezoning for commercial and not so much retail, but a lot of more industrial development is planned for those activity centers. It is vitally important to the financial future of this city that we accelerate that development out east. And we have a situation with the Florida Department of Transportation that we have a little bit of a chicken egg kind of situation. FDOT, Florida Department of Transportation, wants to see some infrastructure improvements there, roads, and maybe utilities and power. Understandable, right?
Yep.
Before they build that interchange. But it's sort of a chicken and the egg. We don't have the money. We have some money. We're slow to improve infrastructure in the western half of the city because of our inability to borrow and needing to save up. How do you then say to the community, well, we're going to spend even less improving infrastructure west of Toledo Blade, and we're going to spend it out east where the city won't see the benefit of that for 5, 10, 15 years. I'll be dead. So it's a challenge. So we have some really great staff, and they are evaluating, they're working with a lot of the property owners, the larger property owners out east, and trying to come up with different creative ways of funding infrastructure development out east in support of those master plans that Pam was referencing that we'll see early next year, but also to begin, facilitating the development of that new exchange. But the city is paying for some temporary lights at both Sumter and Toledo Blade to help with the traffic flow. It's bad in the morning. It's bad going out. It's bad coming in. Absolutely.
We don't want to lose lives either, because it's so dangerous.
It is dangerous. It is dangerous.
Robin's got another question. Are you aware of any FDOT plans to add more lanes to 75? And I agree with her. It becomes a parking lot. I don't know whether it's a true parking lot because of open roads or the construction. I want to see 75 with no construction on it first, so I can actually drive it without having to hit construction. But I feel like I'm in Columbus, Ohio again. But I agree with her. It's kind of very treacherous, and it's definitely dangerous. And when I'm on the motorcycle, it's tough too.
Right.
I want to stop and start all over the place,
Yeah. Robin, you are pushing all of my buttons today, or between you and Pam. Evacuation is a major concern of mine. And to answer your question, I've not heard of any immediate plans by FDOT. I no longer sit on the Metropolitan Planning Organization. I was on it for 3 years and I rolled off earlier this year. So I'm not aware of any. A lot of the focus of FDOT right now is improving the interchanges in North County. You can like that, you can not like that. The traffic situation up there is horrible. They are adding lanes up there. I'm not aware of any plans to add lanes in South County or through Northport and Charlotte County. The major problem, my personal experience with 75 is I'm on 75 a lot going north. I sit on boards in Sarasota, their commission assignments. I represent the city on those boards, so I'm going up and down 75 a lot. It's a rare day that there's not an accident and traffic is snarled. And anyone familiar with that, if there's problems on 75, the overflow onto 41, both of those roads become impassable. And so for a couple of years, I had been exploring, and when I sat on the MPO, talking about extending Toledo Blade to 72, also known as Clark Road. It would sort of parallel the roads out, Kings Highway when you head east to the central part of the state. Because I have had a couple of situations when there have been accidents on 75. I could not get out of the city and head north. I couldn't. Both roads were impassable. And I missed my meetings. I mean, thank God I wasn't in someone's car having a stroke or a heart attack, but it is impassable. The challenge is the city is bordered on the north and on the northeast, and really to the northwest, with environmental land. So in order to extend Toledo Blade to 72, it would require traversing some environmentally sensitive areas, something really no one wants to do. But if you haven't experienced the inability to leave the city of Northport, you can't really appreciate how frightening that could be in times of real emergency. You simply can't get out, period. End of story. And if a hurricane is going to come from south to north, which in my experience is the only way they go, do you really want to head south to try to get inland to the city? I don't think so, when probably a million of your closest friends and neighbors are taking the same route.
Right.
So we definitely need a second evacuation route. I did, not me, the city had 2 projects in front of the MPO. The Metropolitan Planning Organization is made up of elected officials in Sarasota and Manatee County. And our purpose is working with FDOT on our planning, our traffic planning needs, interstate primarily, state roads. And we had 2 projects. One was to do a study, heavily an environmental study, on if we were to expand Toledo Blade to 72, how could we do that, minimizing any negative environmental impact, and the same thing, extending Price to River Road. Although I'm personally a little less concerned about that because it doesn't help evacuation. It just it helps traffic, which would be helpful. And both of those projects were voted on, and both projects were removed from the list with only 1 vote supporting those projects, and that was me. Every other elected on that board voted no for the studies, not talking about doing the expansion, but to do the studies. So that's where we're at.
So I'm gonna condense this one down a little bit for you. They had 2 serious injuries over at the high school on the football field, and they did not have an ambulance present. We have learned, because Sean and I do Bobcat Blitz on Tuesdays,
right.
And we interview the athletes at the high school and the coaches and engage with them, and that airs at 6:00 on Tuesday evening.
Right.
But the other schools have like an emergency golf cart that they utilize. We don't have anything like that at the high school. I know you and I have talked about this briefly. And that really isn't a city commission, like that's really the school system versus city, right?
On my trim notice, so the trim notice, if you don't study those, I would suggest that you do. So before we get our property tax bills, a couple months in advance, we sort of get the estimated bill, and that's the trim notice. We pay, I might be a 0.01 off, but I think 6.1% property tax to the schools. We pay I'm always off with our own, 6.737 to the city of Northport. So we pay just about twice to the schools as we pay Northport city taxes. So I think that is a wonderful conversation to have with the Sarasota School Board. And I'm not saying, they're under the same constraints as all of the other municipalities and taxing authorities everywhere, but certainly within Sarasota County. There's way more projects and things deserving of funding than there's money to go around. But until we start engaging as a community with the county and with the school board, then we'll continue to, not have some of these things. Now, in defense of the school board, they have been incredibly helpful. They've funded the new Northport High School in Wallen Park. They've funded a doubling of the footprint of our technical college up on Toledo Blade. Very exciting. That'll be expanding training and nursing and medical technicians, as well as manufacturing technologies. They've also funded a major upgrade to our existing Northport High School. So they have been investing a lot in the city of Northport. So I do want people to be aware of that. But if we do need some emergency assistance out at the games, that's where I would start. I'm also just taking a note. I will talk through city manager. I will talk with staff about ambulance or cart service. I mean, I would think we could do some fundraising or how much would sort of an electric cart cost? If Sean, if you'd like to shoot me a little bit of information, I'm happy to make inquiries in the city and see if there's any way we can help. But we also need to engage with the school board around our sporting.
That's what I was going to ask. Is there? Do you have any connection with the school board now?
Informally, our mayor once a month gets together with all of the elected officials and the school board to sort of talk about what's going on in our communities. So, I'll mention to Mayor.
And then Phil, I got Phil on the mind. Sean said he's going to. So I've got Sean, Phil, and Robin on the mind.
Wow.
Because I messed everybody up. But he said thank you, but he'll definitely find out some more information for you.
Right.
And then I have another. Robin said, "Great broadcast, John and Commissioner Langdon. Very informative with excellent and in-depth explanation and questions."
Yeah.
I love it when everybody gets involved in it. It certainly makes the hour.
Flew by.
Anyway, but we're over the hour actually already. So
right.
It's that is the beauty in this whole thing.
Right.
I don't have any more questions, but posted from anybody else. But
I need another hour. There were other things.
You want to add anything in real quick?
Nothing that I could do in 5 or 10 minutes. You're just going to have me back.
I will.
Yeah. But so much to talk about. And it's interesting. These shows really take on a life of their own, and they're really directed by the audience participation and the Q&A and all of that. So I appreciate people listening in and asking questions. You've really put me through my paces today.
Well, check out another one pop up, and it was he went to the GIS presentation today. Can you read that out loud?
Went to the GIS presentation today. You're one up on me. I had a very good chat with the GIS staff from multiple jurisdictions, focusing on the property west of the old Winn-Dixie, east of the Myakkahatchee Creek, and north of 41. Believe this is a manatee protection zone. Used to have a conservation restricted easement of the city and is in a FEMA flood zone. Why would you not allow the property owner to sell it to the county as a park? I wasn't aware that a property owner wanted to sell it as a park or that there was any way for the city to obstruct that. So I'd have to do a little bit of research into that because I'm not aware of any activity there.
I thought I'd throw you out some kudos from everybody. So.
Thank you, Russ. Thank you for the participation, and thank you for putting up with me. I've talked a lot.
Yeah, you did a good job.
Yeah.
I appreciate you, and listeners, thank you so much for following and engaging. And please share this content and encourage everybody. As you can tell, questions got asked and answered. So this is what it's a platform that encourages participation. So thank you so much. I appreciate everybody doing it.
Take care. Have a good week, everybody.
This is John Rawlings with Real Talk saying thanks very much for joining us today, and we'll talk to you soon. Bye bye now.
Bye.